So we are standing by to see what a new day brings in Los Angeles, with the city bracing for a fifth straight day, potentially, of protests to be breaking out in downtown Los Angeles against the administration's ramped up ICE raids we've seen playing out. Also, we've seen similar protests breaking out in cities across the country over the administration's immigration crackdown. So where is the country's voters on this issue? CNN's Harry Anton took a look at the numbers around, interestingly enough, how immigrant voters feel about immigration and the immigration crackdown. Where do you want to start?
Yeah,
the legacy media is learning, and it seems to be the hard way, that they no longer have the impact and the influence. And a major reason is because, unlike 2020 with the Summer of Love, where the Democrat Party had control of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, the CEO, or should I say the founder of Twitter, was in the Biden administration's pocket. And he was working on behalf of the left, and they were censoring conservative. They were censoring videos when Seattle, Portland, and Minneapolis were being burned to the ground. And the Democrats were telling us that those were peaceful protests. Remember that? When they literally, in Tim Walz state, Tampon Tim state, they were taking over police precincts, taking over federal buildings. As a matter of fact, Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, was heard on walkie-talkie telling his police chiefs, give it up, while his wife said she opened up the window and wanted to smell Minneapolis burning. These are the people that we dealing with. And so you got the LA riots going on, Chicago. Now, the mayor, the psychotic mayor, Brandon Johnson, the left-wing socialist Marxist mayor of Chicago, just came out publicly and demanded the people of Chicago to come out into the streets and to create unrest. Those were his exact words, to create unrest, to not allow ICE to come in and remove the illegal immigrant criminals that the Chicagoans want removed. Brandon Johnson also has a 7%, a single-digit approval rating right now. So as you can see, his judgment isn't too good. But let's get back into this. So what the Democrat Party has done, they've tried to lump immigrants and illegal immigrants into the same boat, and trying to say, like, hey, listen, if you came here legally and did it the right way and waited your turn and took all of the tests and the things you needed to do to get here, you should be upset and stand in solidarity with your brothers and sisters who came here illegally, who have gotten everything free, who have been catered to in ways that people that were born and raised here, that are from here, don't get. They expect these people to be upset and fight with those people, and it's not happening. As a matter of fact, you got some of these left-wing extremists even trying to attack black people for not coming out into the streets and fighting for this BS. It's insane, and this is all the making of Marxists. So in this video, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the reality, not what the lamestream media is trying to sell. Remember, they told us that Joe Biden was cognitively there. Now we know it was a lie. Remember, they told us the border was secure. We knew that it was a lie. Remember, they told us that inflation was transitory. We found out it was a lie. But now they want us to believe that LA was peaceful. But when President Trump deployed 2,000 National Guards, that's when things got out of control. Even though the 2,000 deployed National Guards did not engage, they stood down until they were forced to engage. But they want you to believe it was peaceful, even though, hey, Democrats, you know, we know how terrible they are at social media, because they've been looking real cringe at some of the things they try to do. But they forget that the internet is undefeated, and we got video. We can see that LA was burning. Half of it is already burned through the wildfires. The other half would have burned down if the president hadn't taken the necessary steps. And it's real funny how in 2020, December of 2020 to be exact, California set plans to turn Los Angeles into a smart city, a city that's ran electronically and on smart technology. And ironically, the wildfires come through, the reservoirs were empty, level half of the city. And now these protests, which were riots, break out in an attempt to burn down the other half of the city. Does that seem kind of ironic to you, that just 3 years from now, this smart city was supposed to be built? And wouldn't it make it that much easier if the city was just leveled in some unforeseen disaster hidden in plain sight? So let's get into this, and then I'm gonna get into the video and let Harry really give you the news. So as you see, the headline says a 40-point shift to the right. CNN's Harry Anton marvels at Trump and the GOP's tremendously improved polling with immigrants. As a matter of fact, let me just let Harry get into it. Let's check out what Harry has to say. Then I get into the article.
Let's just sort of start off on the fact that Immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were in fact immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically about Donald Trump?
Yeah. So, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this. Trump's vote share in presidential election among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this. In 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters. And Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration and into the Republican camp.
If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up, because I'll never ask you for a cash app or a super chat, but you hitting that like button, it really does help the channel, helps get the information out there. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And then once you do, whether you're subscribing now or you're already subscribed, make sure that you hit the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Well, so as you see, so the Democrats constantly try to tell us how Trump's losing support. Oh my God, the Hispanic community, he's gaining support because the people that did it right, they know what they went through, and they were fleeing those places for a reason. And what's happening is they're seeing that element being brought into the country. As President Trump has said, which was seen as a conspiracy, which again, another right-wing conspiracy that's turned out to be fact. These other countries were really opening up their insane asylums, their prisons, and releasing their worst on the American shores. They really were doing that. Yeah, these people paying coyotes to take these criminals and transport them across. That was really happening. And so the Biden administration, and I'm not sure if you heard about this yet, and I may do a video on it, I don't know. The Venezuelan government has come out and asked President Trump to please take a look at the fact, or should I say the allegation, that the Biden administration gave money to the Venezuelan government and funded the Tren de Agua gang to be brought into America.
Utilizar la campaña de la administración Biden sobre el tema del Tren de Aragua. Yo sobre eso tengo una posición muy clara. Le digo al presidente Donald Trump, con respeto, pida los informes de los últimos 4 años del FBI y la DEA, de las oficinas en Colombia, para que ustedes vean, presidente Trump, quiénes financiaron, quiénes movieron, quiénes dirigieron al famoso Tren de Aragua, quiénes lo llevaron a Colombia, quiénes lo llevaron a Estados Unidos. Y pida los informes verídicos para que sepa que aquí en Venezuela nosotros derrotamos, desmembramos y acabamos con ese grupo delincuencial, violento, que pretendió utilizarse desde Colombia con lazos profundos con la antigua administración Biden para traer terrorismo a Venezuela. Si algo se puede decir de terrorismo del Tren de Aragua, extinto Tren de Aragua, es que querían atacar con terrorismo las ciudades del país. Y nosotros lo evitamos, mira, con inteligencia, con acción. Presidente Trump, pide esos informes para que usted vea. Se los digo con sinceridad y con respeto, para que usted vea la verdad sobre el famoso Tren de Aragua. Nuestros migrantes no son delincuentes, no son gente mala. Fueron gente que emigró producto de las sanciones. Son gente de bien, gente de trabajo. Y en Venezuela le damos la bienvenida como fuerza productiva, con un abrazo amoroso. Bienvenido, vuelta a la patria.
To be brought into America, to wreak havoc. And look at what's happening. Look at what's happening in LA. Look at a lot of the crime surges in the sanctuary cities. Why is that? Why are these strongholds, these Democrat strongholds going through this? It is to maintain power. A, they want to flood it with people so they can gain congressional seats. B, they want to flood it with people so they can maintain Democrat votes. But what they're not realizing is that how long are those people going to fall for the BS? How long are they going to stay your constituents? And then number two, I mean, A, they think people are just that much of robots that they just know they're just going to be Democrats. And then the violence element. These Democrats refuse to condemn violence, which again is Marxist in itself. These people are insane. Let me let them keep going.
And on that, what you're getting at, how immigrant citizens, voters, feel about people in the country illegally.
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, Kate Baldwin. Look at this. The net favorable rating, immigrants who are here illegally, among immigrant citizens, again, those registered to vote. In 2020, look at this, plus 23 points on the net favorable rating. But look at where we were in 2024, minus 6 points, underwater. So immigrant citizens have become increasingly unfavorable in their views of those immigrants who are here illegally. So I think it's so important when we're talking about this debate from a political angle to separate those out who are undocumented immigrants versus those who are here legally and those who are citizens and those who are voters, because that group of voters has felt increasingly distant from those immigrants who are here legally. And so again, when we're talking about this, at least from a political angle, this is why Donald Trump feels so comfortable, because in fact, amongst the group that you would think that would be most opposed to this, in fact, they become increasingly favorable, not just towards Donald Trump, but towards the Republican point of view on immigration and becoming distant from those immigrants who are here illegally.
Yeah, an important baseline to consider as this plays out.
Yes, we'll see where we are in a few weeks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Harry.
So you know that they dreaded having to say that about President Trump. And you know, when networks like CNN, ABC, CBS, it's just like with the economy, the CPI report came out. And guess what? It was much better than what they had anticipated. Inflation came in at 2.4%, which was lower than they expected. Gas prices was down 12%, I believe. You know, eggs are down. I forget the exact percentage. But now eggs have become like a thing to measure. But across the board, and this whole tariff impact that they were talking about isn't taking place. So these so-called economists and laureates that we hear these people always brag about, they obviously weren't as intelligent as they like us to believe they were. You know what I mean? Because they were wrong. Everything is going well. So when they have to give props to President Trump, he's probably doing even better than what CNN is reporting. But I just wanted to bring you the good news just to show you that Republican support is growing amongst immigrants. Even the immigrants want these people out. You know, so it's not they're trying to guilt people into not wanting, or to guilt people into supporting illegal immigration. Oh, you're racist if you want people deported. You want mothers and children separated. No, the children can go with the parents. They came here with them. They can go with them. Nobody's doing that. Who are actually doing that is these governors and these mayors who are forcing ICE to go in and clash with these people and put it in a situation where a mother may have to be arrested and be separated from their children rather than escorted. Big difference. But I just wanted to bring you this update, let you in on some good information. We share enough BS. That's some good information. Even the immigrants, people from these countries that came here legally, overwhelmingly supported, want them out. So, and that's just what President Trump is doing. So listen, if you rocked out with me to this point, I really do appreciate it. Leave a comment, hit that like button if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, I want you to be safe and you stay great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.